there in virtual robot form. Over the last year and a half, I've been focusing pretty much on 30 stocks that I've been analyzing that I believe are going to be the movers and shakers in the AI revolution, and which is driven by semiconductors. And I think the process is very similar to the development of the internet, and I like to refer to it, because it's a little easier for me to understand, the development of the highway system within the United States. When President Eisenhower made the declaration that we had to build a interstate highway system so that we could move our military from north to south and east to west, mostly from east to west, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, in case we got invaded after World War II, we needed that internet system. So they went about setting out designing the internet system, but getting the bulldozers onto first buying the land and then getting the bulldozers out there and pouring concrete and using a rebar in that and building the highway. And that's in essence what's happening now. We're building the AI network that was facilitated by Sam Altman's introduction of ChatGPT back in, I guess it was November of 22. And we recognized that in order to build this highway, if you will, we needed more powerful semiconductors, and we looked to the manufacturer of the most powerful, and that was NVIDIA. In fact, it was being done for the gaming world, but it had the compute power that the CPUs that were being made by other chip designers. We got to keep that separated from manufacturing. Manufacturing is very different than designing. So with that in mind, we've had an explosion of purchasing of these GPUs from NVIDIA. Well, in investing, you got to follow the money. So who's purchasing them? And that tells you who's going to deliver AI to you. And who's purchasing them are Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft. So that's the flow of money going to NVIDIA, the highway maker, because they believe they are going to deliver AI through their ownership of data to you and I. Okay, so if we understand that, who's buying those chips, we know who's going to deliver the ultimate product. Now, in our highway system, how does that relate? Well, I would say the big winners as the result of the building of that highway system was ExxonMobil and the other oil companies and the automobile companies. So we make that relative switch over to who, once that highway's built, who is going to be the winner. And again, I think it comes down to, and I'm going to throw Apple in there as well. Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft. And then I'm going to dig in a little deeper and I'm going to say, well, let's put Tesla in that. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we go down. But then, okay, so we know where the end result is. So we need to own Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft. Well, then, that's going to be made possible by the development of chips. So now we have to understand the chip infrastructure. So who makes the chips? These are called fabs, fabricating factories. But the fab has to have the machine to make the chip. And ASML makes this monstrous machine that they sell for I think it's $200 million that Taiwan Semiconductor and Intel and Samsung buy. That's really the only three buyers. Yes, only three buyers that we've identified into this time who are going to be able to make those GPUs. Now, the big maker right now is Taiwan Semiconductor. Well, we have to now look at geopolitical. Can we afford to have the most important product for the security of our nation and the future of our economy made in Taiwan? I don't think so. And there's a lot of goofiness going on about how much is the government going to throw towards Intel, and it used to be 10 billion and now it's down to 8.6 billion. I don't care. My mind, my experience tells me Intel's got to come away with a big portion of that so that our nation is secure as we move forward. We don't want to be buying the semiconductors that run our fighters and our submarines and our aircraft carriers. And as far as that goes, our information systems here in the United States, we don't want to be totally dependent on Taiwan Semiconductor or for the memory chips from Samsung, because those are two companies that are the major providers of those chips, but they're not on our soil. Okay, so I believe Intel is a big one, and then I'll throw in Skywater, and that makes up what I call the fab infrastructure: ASML, Taiwan Semiconductor, Intel, and Skywater. So then, okay, so we know who makes the who's going to deliver the AI. We know who makes the chips, the physical making of them. Well, who designs them? Well, we've already talked about NVIDIA. We talked a little bit about Intel. And then there's a company called Rambus and Marvell and Broadcom and On Semiconductor and AMD and Micron Technology. They all have a different place in designing different kind of chips that are needed to run our country, our world, our economy. NVIDIA, again, you know what they do. Intel used to be kind of the dominant chip maker of CPUs. Those are data processing chips that go in, that have been a part of our laptops and our phones and our desktops, and so they have but the real go-getter, is the GPU. But again, there is design factors that have to be figured into there. So again, in what I call the designers of the chips is NVIDIA, Intel, Rambus, Marvell, Broadcom, On Semiconductor, Advanced Micro Devices, and Micron. So that helps that. Now, they designed the chip, and then that chip or that server where the chip is housed has 30,000 parts in it. So now you've got, and think of this like the car. General Motors makes the car, but they don't make all the parts of the car. So they have to facilitate, and they don't design all the parts that go into the car. So they have to depend on facilitators. Now, the facilitators not only work on the chips, they facilitate the use of the chips in the data centers. Because in the data center, you put that chip in, and we've seen this just recently. We've got this powerful chip, and we put it in this data center that it is 2 acres big, and those servers sit there and process all the data that AI is going to need, and they overheat. Okay, so somebody has to cool that data center to keep that heat down. And then they've recognized that that's not enough. Somebody has to redesign that chip so that the silicone is not absorbing and then reflecting all that heat, and they need to come up with something else. That's another element that we look in. And so the facilitators for the data centers become Modine, Fix, F-I-X, and Vertiv. Those are kind of the cooling agents. Then you have those people who come in and say, okay, I can take care of the making sure that those wafers that are made at Taiwan Semiconductor, about the size of a 78 album, and they have about 1 million transistors on them. And once Taiwan makes it, somebody has to run electricity through it to see if all of the transistors are working. Okay, and are they functioning properly before you put them into the semiconductor and put them into the data center? Well, that's AEHR, and that's ultra clean. These are the facilitators, and as I said, I had Modine, Fix, Vertiv, Candace. These are the people. This is a very interesting stock. These people basically build models that says, is what you made going to work? And so they simulate the design of the CPUs and GPUs that are being made. So before they go to manufacturing, they tell them if the design is going to work. Then you have Symbotics. I put them in the facilitator because, again, they are taking software and AI and bringing them into distribution centers and robotizing. Then you have Dell. You know what Dell does. You have a number of other SMCI. They're the guy who puts all the boxes together, as Dell does. And then you have ACLS, and they make the connections, the networking, so that these 1 million servers that are in a data center have the ability to talk to each other. So you see, it's a broad system that, in order for NVIDIA to work, or for Amazon to deliver you the AI to make your shopping easier, all these companies have to come in to make that this system works. And if you can identify those stocks and understand how they fit into the system, then you can invest in them and recognize their day will come. Because until that data center is entirely built out, we really don't need the cooling. It's the end result. So some of these stocks are what I call depressed stocks. Because they haven't gotten into the development of the system, that the highway system that ultimately will be there. They aren't active players yet. Their price is depressed, some cases as much as 60%, but that presents a buying opportunity. So how do you recognize that buying opportunity? By understanding the ecosystem. Because you gotta know that 98%, including the big houses, they don't understand the system. They have not dug deep. They're too broad, they're too reactive to, well, how do interest rates affect this? Interest rates do not affect the highway system. They don't. Well, except that if interest rates are high, you might not go on vacation, so you won't be stopping at Buc-ee's. That's the way it goes. But in the future, when the economics all settle down, these are the companies that are going to benefit. Then we go into software, okay? This is an area I have a real interest in because I want to create a system to teach you how to invest, not only in the 30 stocks that I follow, but the 3,650 stocks that are available in the stock market. And in order to do that, I need a piece of software that can go every morning and analyze what happened in every stock in the stock market, pick up every piece of news, analyze it, interpret it, and then present it to my subscribers that this is what happened last night, and this is the effect of what happened last night, how it's going to affect 2 years from now, and how it changes the earnings and the PE ratio of what any of these 30 stocks plus all the other stocks in the world, and that can be done by the use of Samantha, my AI agent, that I have to go out and buy and put into effect. Now, I have access to Samantha now through the use of ChatGPT and Claude and Google's Notebook. And so I have created my own piece of software to analyze my 30 stocks, but I want to eventually get that to the point where it's all 6,500. So again, in the software, I invest in companies like Adobe, ServiceNow. I have actually put Tesla in the software category because I think eventually, as we get to autonomous automobiles, the primary deliverer of that software is going to be Tesla. So I have them in my category of software. I also like a company called SoundHound, SOUN, because I believe we are moving away from the world of reading and to the world of verbal communication. I believe you would much rather, this video is probably going to end up being somewhere around 18 minutes. You'd rather me talk to you than me to create a 18-minute document that you can read. And SoundHound aligns with that. They align with providing customer service departments with bots that talk, that give you all the information that whoever you're contacting has available to you. Then I have one cybersecurity company, and that's PANW. I just went blank on to what their name is. So that's how I approach this. I want to understand the ecosystem. It's starting to rain here at the beach, by the way, if you hear that in the background. And what I want to do is provide you a place that you can come on my website where I will give you specific analysts, again through the use of Samantha, my AI agent, where she and Brad will talk to you through a podcast to explain every one of your stocks. Then I want to give you the ability, and I've already got it, where you can ask, what's a PE ratio? How does that relate to a PEG ratio? And again, Samantha and Brad will give you a description so that you can say, okay, now I understand the difference between a PE ratio and a PEG ratio. Now I understand the difference between gross margins and operating margins. And I understand how Kerry is projecting the future price by using projected future earnings against that PE ratio. So now I know not only what I'm buying, but why I'm buying it, and how the financials work to predict future price. That's on my cheat sheet. That's available to you if you come to my website and you sign up for the gold platform. It's $19.99 a month, but I want you to be confident that it is what you want and it can give you value. So I'm giving you a 14-day free trial so that you can come and say, hey, this dude seems to know what the hell he's talking about, and he's got a format that my questions can be answered. Eventually, Kerry's going to be there in virtual robot form that you can talk back and forth. That's in the future. That's what these 30 stocks are all going to deliver to me. The ability to answer your questions as you ask them and make you a better investor. Now, I've also mentioned that I've created a relationship with Goldman Sachs. We'll have to see where that goes, and I'll keep you up to date on that, because I think what that does, and truly you're invested in that relationship. If I can get them to say, Kerry, that's a fantastic idea, and we'd like to help you, help the world become knowledgeable investors, because you aren't taught that in grammar school. You aren't taught it in high school, and you aren't taught it in college unless you go to Harvard or Wharton. And there ain't that many of us going to Harvard and Wharton. Well, there aren't that many of us who are analysts for Goldman Sachs. But if we can gain access to that knowledge, our lives will change. The world's lives will change. Just 1%, no, 10% of the world's population owns 93% of all the stocks traded on the stock market in a given day. That ain't right. And it's because we aren't educated. I'm here to help you get educated, to start the ball rolling in the right direction. I'm Kerry Grinkmeyer. I'm a retired financial advisor. I'm down at the beach for Thanksgiving. I'll get back into this full boat probably, after the December the 1st. I got some other things I'm doing. I'm leading our cohort from Goldman Sachs to help them grow their businesses. But you are my primary focus. I want to help you learn how to invest and then become a millionaire. Talk to you again probably in a couple of days. Thanksgiving's coming up.